Something absolutely huge could happen with the Russian ruble and Swedish Krona pair. First off, read this disclaimer carefully and do your good deed of the day by liking and subscribing. Let's quickly, get an overview of the market. We can see, looking at, performance from the 52-week low, the energy sector is the strongest performing, but that is also because it comes from, a lower level than most of the other sectors and sub-sectors. I think one of those that was even lower, that was shipping. But that is actually relevant to this story, because let's go here to Forex, Europe. Here is the pair. You got the ruble as the base. So you see here there's a 6% gain from the 52-week low, 20% away from the 52-week high. And if we go here to the charts, like this. So this is weekly data points and we go way back into the past. As you can see, this is a pretty clear downtrend. Huge bearish sentiment for the Russian ruble, but something very interesting is happening here. You could make a very strong case that we have a double bottom pattern forming. And this, this is a long-term double bottom. If we measure here the distance, like from here to here, that is almost 1,900 days. Okay, so this is a very long-term pattern. And I do like the smoothness of this, especially here the right, the second bottom. It is also a bit higher than this one, this is very textbook. This is a very textbook double bottom pattern. Does it mean that they always resolve to the upside? Of course not. It is that there's a higher probability of it resolving to the upside because, for one, this pattern has developed over almost 2,000 days. So this is a long-term pattern. A lot of money has gone into forming this bottom and this bottom. And the people who move the Forex market are, the big players. This is it. This is very interesting indeed. And the super cycle that people talk about in the commodity space could definitively be quite beneficial for Russia. So yeah, this looks really interesting. Looking at the RSI, there's no overheating so far. So there's potentially some pretty significant upside if this works out. It's important to be aware that there are two sides to the market. You have the bulls and you have the bears. Obviously, the bears will want to see a break below this level. But so far, if you look here at, let's look at the correlation with S&P 500 first. So there's a minus 60% negative correlation long term, looking over the last 3 years. So here you have the daily data points. And this is an incredibly nice and smooth rounding bottom. So this is a very nice pattern. Looking at the RSI, historically, we can actually get higher before there is a high probability of a pullback. We can see here that during uptrends for the Russian ruble, we don't like to get above 70. As you can see, that usually triggers a pullback, but we do touch that overbought-ish level. Hence, you could assume that there is more fuel left to the rally. I do see some cyclicality here, some small cycle patterns. They are relatively reliable. The cycle pattern suggests that there could, be some pullback on the horizon, but that is a natural part of, a rounding bottom pattern. And this also, this is something that has developed over quite some time. This has taken 223 days. We do have a key resistance level. So you have the red 200-day moving average tested surgically almost as support here and back here. Now, in all probability, it will, be a bit of a resistance level. The benefit is that it is actually quite negative. So it is sharply negative, hence we are given. It's just a given that we are going to get above it. Ideally we will cross above it in an aggressive bullish manner. But that is just how it works. When there's a sharply negative moving average, eventually price will get above it. Just a function of how a price moves. Okay, so basically looking here at well, this is kind of fascinating. So there's long term, there is a minus 59% negative correlation. Short term, there's minus 59%. That is actually quite rare. So quite remarkable how stable the correlation here between this pair and the S&P 500, which means that this could actually be quite beneficial as a long-term a long-term market-neutral portfolio, where given the current evidence, it makes sense to be bullish the ruble versus the SEK. Very interesting. So let's now compare Russia with Sweden, a bit briefly look at some of the data we get from Index Mundi. So let's just go down here to natural resources. So Russia, they have a very wide range of natural resources. Get oil, natural gas, coal, all kinds of minerals, rare earth elements. Also, we have seen a big move in rare earth elements, timber. I mean, but this is a very big country. And we just look here. If we compare here the land boundaries. 22,000 kilometers for Russia, 2,200 for Sweden. The coastline, 37,000, almost 38,000 kilometers here for Russia and 2,200 for Sweden. Looking at natural resources for Sweden, they do have iron ore, copper, lead, zinc, gold, silver, tungsten, uranium, hydropower as well. But basically, it's quite clear that as far as a commodity supercycle goes, that would be definitively beneficial for Russia. Let's go a bit further down and look at the people. The median age is actually rather similar. Looking at the birth rate here, 10 births to 1,000 population for Russia. A bit more here for Sweden. Higher death rate in Russia. Here is the net immigration rate is very significantly bigger for Sweden. And this, has become a big issue. Something that I find kind of baffling about this entire topic is that very few people highlight the history of Europe. When you look at, World War I, World War II, and you also look at all the wars that have been in Europe between, different ethnic groups, during the Middle Ages, one could make a strong case that Europe is not exactly an ideal place to experiment with this. So that is just baffling, especially given World War II. That was kind of dramatic. So that is frankly just a political risk, and I do expect Russia to capitalize on that. Let's go a bit further down here. I get education expenditures significantly higher here for Sweden. There's so many numbers we could go through here. It's so much data. But basically, okay, looking long term, looking at the coming years, I think you could make a rather strong case here to the bullish side for the Russian ruble. I do think that from a geopolitical standpoint, from an economic standpoint, from many standpoints, also relating to geopolitics, with the rise of China, Russia is very well positioned. They have a lot of allies that, as an example, America doesn't have, and other European, big European countries like Germany doesn't have. So I do think that there's a very strategic long-term positioning. Looking at the shorter time frame, there's reason to maybe expect a bit of a pullback eventually, given that there is some resistance levels. But this pattern has developed over a long time. Hence, looking at the shorter time frame where we have that rounding bottom formation, you did see that it did move up and down in these waves. But basically, the bulls have the stars aligning up for them here, so very, very interesting.